My sister spent years trying to force me to reconnect with my ex-boyfriend. Things came to a head when I got pregnant with my husband's baby, and she, along with my mom, ambushed me with my ex at a fake party. To give you some background, I started dating my brother's best friend when I was just 16. We were together throughout high school, and things seemed fine, until he proposed to me right after graduation. I turned him down. That decision caused a ton of drama with my family, who kept pressuring me to reconsider. They suggested a long engagement, or even some kind of commitment to work things out. My relationship with my brother, he's 36 now, became strained for a while, but eventually, we were able to patch things up. The one with my sister, though, never really recovered. She's 32 now, and was completely convinced that my ex was the one for me. Things got unbearable when she started dating my ex's brother. Suddenly, my ex was showing up everywhere. My siblings invited him to all sorts of family events, including holidays. I let it slide at first because, after all, he was their friend too. But my sister took things way too far. She started scheming, trying to set us up in all kinds of awkward situations. She arranged so-called blind dates, where he'd conveniently show up, or she'd make us share a room during family holidays, as if that would magically bring us back together. It was exhausting. Eventually, I reached my breaking point and asked my parents to step in. They talked to my siblings and made it clear that my ex couldn't be included in every little thing. For a while, things got slightly better. My brother backed off and stopped pushing the issue, but my sister just wouldn't let it go. Everything came crashing down when I met my husband during a semester abroad. He was from another university, but we were in the same country, and from the moment we met, something just clicked. It felt magical in a way I had never experienced before. After dating for about a year, we got engaged. My family was thrilled for me. Well, most of them. My sister? Not so much. She kept harping on about how I was just caught up in the honeymoon phase and how I would eventually come to my senses. Spoiler alert, I did not. Despite countless, and I do mean countless, fights and sneaky attempts to push me back toward my ex, I stood firm. I finally had enough and gave her a very clear warning. If she pulled any more stunts, I was done. No more talking, no more trying to fix things. I would cut her out of my life completely. And what does she do after that warning? She makes me her maid of honor. At first, I thought this might be her way of extending an olive branch, but no. Her idea of reconciliation was to shove me into the bridal party, where I had to spend all my time surrounded by her friends and, you guessed it, my ex. To make matters worse, she arranged for one of her friends to act as my husband's date. We did not even realize what was happening until the reception, when the poor woman, clearly misled, made a pass at him. When I confronted my sister, she brushed it off, saying that since we were not married yet, it was perfectly fine to explore things with other people. I was beyond livid. I walked out of her wedding that night, furious and heartbroken. The next day, I had a long conversation with my parents and my brother. I explained everything, laying it all out. I told them I was not going to make them choose between us, but as far as I was concerned, I was done with her. I made it clear that if anyone tried to push us to reconcile, I would cut contact with them too. My mom was devastated and tried to negotiate some sort of middle ground, but my dad and brother understood. They promised to respect my decision. Apart from two half-hearted attempts from my mom, I have not spoken to or written to my sister in over 6 years. She has tried every trick in the book to reconcile with me, from gifts to tantrums. My sister has tried everything to get me to talk to her again. I have stayed firm. At family events or dinners, I act like she does not exist. In the beginning, she would make snarky comments or try to stir up drama, but since no one backed her up, she eventually gave up. The biggest meltdown came when she found out she was invited to my wedding but would not be involved in any of the preparations. My brother has admitted to me that he feels guilty for going along with her antics for so long. He says his relationship with my ex has taken a hit because of it. While they still talk, they are nowhere near as close as they used to be. The latest issue happened a couple of weeks ago, during my mom's birthday. My husband and I finally announced that we are expecting our first child. This is not my parents' first grandchild, but it is their first granddaughter. Everyone was thrilled, except for my sister. My mom noticed her lack of enthusiasm and invited me over for tea a few days later. I had a bad feeling about it right away. Something in my gut told me not to go, but I wanted to believe this could be a positive step forward. As soon as I pulled up to the house and saw my sister's car in the driveway, I knew something was off. When I walked inside, there they all were. My sister, her husband, my ex, and, of all people, my ex's mom. I realized right then that I had walked into an ambush. They had set up some kind of intervention, as they called it. My ex had the nerve to say he was just trying to be romantic back then, and that he now understands I could not appreciate it. His mother chimed in, accusing me of hurting my sister by refusing to forgive her when all she wanted was the best for me. She even went as far as to say that my sister had apologized, so I needed to move on. I was tried everything to reach out to me, from extravagant gifts to throwing tantrums, but I have stayed firm. I do not speak to her at all. If we are at the same family event or dinner, I act like she does not exist. At first, she would throw out snarky comments or try to stir up drama, but since nobody sided with her, she eventually gave up. She did have a major meltdown, though, when she found out she was invited to my wedding but would not be involved in any of the preparations. My brother later admitted that he feels guilty for going along with her antics for so long. His relationship with my ex has not been the same since. They still talk occasionally, but the closeness they once had is gone. The real breaking point happened a couple of weeks ago during my mom's birthday celebration. I finally shared the news that my husband and I are expecting our first child. It is not the first grandchild in the family, but it will be the first granddaughter, which made the announcement extra special. Everyone was thrilled, except for my sister. My mom noticed her reaction and invited me for tea a few days later. Something about the invitation felt off, but I wanted to be optimistic, so I went. The moment I arrived, I noticed my sister's car parked out front. My gut sank, but I went in anyway. Inside, waiting for me, were my sister, her husband, my ex, and, of all people, my ex's mother. It quickly became clear they were staging an intervention. My ex started with some ridiculous spiel about how he was just trying to be romantic and how he understands now that I could not appreciate his efforts. Then his mom chimed in, saying that I was hurting my sister, who only ever wanted the best for me, and that since my sister had already apologized, I needed to forgive her. I was stunned. While they were talking, I was quietly texting my dad, my brother, and my husband, all while staring at my mom in disbelief. Then, my sister's husband had the audacity to tell me I was being a hurtful person, and that, since I was about to become a parent, I needed to act like an adult. That was when my mom started reading a letter she had prepared. It was filled with emotional appeals about how sad she was that her daughters were not close, how my sister had been wrong but had good intentions, and so on. After my mom finished, my sister read her own letter. She broke down crying, basically repeating everything the others had already said. I just sat there, saying nothing. I was too shocked to respond. Then my brother showed up. He was angrier than I had ever seen him. Without a word to anyone, he grabbed my things and led me out of the house. Once we were outside and sitting in his car, I completely broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. He kept apologizing over and over, even though none of this was his fault. By the time my dad and husband arrived, I was emotionally drained. I still do not know exactly what happened after we left, but I made my position clear the next day. I sent an email to everyone except my mom, attaching my lawyer's contact information. I told them I no longer wished to be contacted by any of them and that if they tried, I would not hesitate to involve the police. So far, no one has reached out, but my dad has told me my mom and sister are hysterical. They are clinging to the hope that they can repair things and that my sister might somehow be allowed to be part of my baby's life, maybe even as a godmother. My dad has been staying with my brother for now. They both fully support me, but unfortunately, some other family members do not. I have somehow, word of all this got out, and mutual friends started calling me. They were concerned about my sister and wanted to know what had happened, saying she was not doing well. Apparently, she was spinning the narrative that my husband was the one keeping me away from the family. I absolutely hate having my private business aired publicly, but at this point, enough was enough. I decided to set the record straight. I wrote a long, detailed post outlining everything that had happened. The ambush, the letters, the years of manipulation, all of it. My sister, her husband, and my ex, they're getting dragged hard. While it was not entirely intentional, I cannot say I feel bad about it. Honestly, I think they deserve it. Now my mom has been completely inconsolable, and while I do feel a twinge of guilt about that, it does not come close to matching how she made me feel during that intervention. A couple of days ago, she asked if we could talk, and I reluctantly agreed. Under strict conditions, I laid out clear ground rules for any possible future interaction. She must attend individual therapy and family therapy. She must respect firm boundaries. She cannot share any information about me or my life with my sister. Holidays must be celebrated separately, no more forced gatherings. And most importantly, if she ever pulls a stunt like this again, she will be completely cut off. No warnings, no second chances. She thought these conditions were excessive, but eventually agreed to them. She assumed this meant she would immediately have access to news about the baby and that everything would magically be resolved. I had to make it very clear that this was not the case. It is a process, and she needs to prove over time that she is willing to change and respect my boundaries. Meanwhile, my dad and brother have refused to have anything to do with my sister. They have repeatedly apologized for not stepping in sooner, and I have forgiven them because they have clearly learned and grown from this mess. My husband supports whatever decisions I make, though my mother-in-law has her doubts about cutting my mom out completely. She is worried about the potential family strain, especially with a baby on the way, but she is not pushing me to do anything I am uncomfortable with. How having a granddaughter could be a chance to mend fences, but she also told me it is ultimately my decision. And honestly, I am torn about what to do with my mom. First, I want to thank everyone for all the support and advice so far. It has been overwhelming in the best way. There are so many comments that I cannot reply to them all individually, but I wanted to share a little more information that I have mentioned in some of the replies. My ex and I broke up when I was 18. He is 37 now, and the reason we ended things was simple. I was not ready to get married or engaged at that age. My sister's obsession with this relationship comes from her weird fixation on the idea of us marrying brothers and being best friends forever. Looking back, I am starting to realize my mom's kindness toward my husband might have just been a facade. That realization hurts more than I can explain. She always seemed so supportive, but now I cannot help but question if she was just biding her time, hoping I would come around to my sister's twisted idea of what my life should be. As for my ex, he has had other relationships since our breakup. He even has 2 children with an ex, though he has never been married. My sister claims this is some grand romantic gesture, that he has only ever wanted to marry me. It is absurd and a little creepy. From what I have heard through mutual acquaintances, his obsessive behavior has not been limited to me. He was reportedly the same way with the mother of his children, which ended disastrously. Now, thanks to my sister's encouragement, he has refocused his obsession back on me. My sister seems to think that getting him to help her fix things between us will magically make me forgive her and let her be part of my life again, so she can play the role of the good aunt. My brother started to distance himself from my ex when I finally told my parents how uncomfortable I was having him around all the time. At the time, I was living away for college, but whenever I visited my family, my ex was always there, as if he was some kind of permanent fixture in their lives. During my college breaks, my ex would always make a big show of being around, trying to act like he was still part of the family. At the same time, my brother made a huge effort to welcome my husband into our family once they met, which only made the tension between my brother and my ex worse. My ex saw my brother's support for my relationship as some kind of betrayal. These days, my brother and my husband are incredibly close. In fact, my husband is now one of my brother's best friends. As for my brother and my ex, they barely talk. When they do, it is only out of necessity, usually about my sister's son, my nephew, or just to avoid being outright rude. For a while, it seemed like both my parents supported my decision to limit my ex's presence in my life. But looking back, I now realize my dad was the only one who genuinely agreed with me. On the day of that so-called tea party, my mom told my dad she wanted some quality mother-daughter time with me and was making my favorite tea and treats. She suggested he spend the afternoon with my uncle instead. Thinking it was a thoughtful gesture, my dad left, completely unaware of what was really going on. When he found out later, he was furious. As for my husband, he initially made a real effort to connect with my sister when they first met, but over time, her behavior made that impossible. Now, he ignores her entirely and believes she may have some kind of underlying mental health issue. We do not know if that is true, but even if it is, it does not excuse the way she has treated me. The inclusion of my ex and his mother at that ambush tea party was supposedly because my mom and sister thought it would be good for me to confront the root of my issues with my sister. At least, that is the official story they are sticking to. It still makes my blood boil. To clarify a few things, since some people seem to make assumptions, we are not Indian, nor are we particularly religious. My husband and I are of the same race, and there is no significant wealth disparity between my husband and my ex. If anything, my husband is in a better financial position. Lastly, my sisters-in-law, both my brother's wife and my husband's sisters, are absolutely enraged about the entire situation. My husband and his sisters are planning to speak with their mom about the hurtful comments she made regarding the situation, while my brother and his wife are seriously considering going no contact with my mom permanently. For now, they have decided not to let her see my nephews, at least for a while. The more I think about it, the more I feel like I may need to go no contact with my mom too, for the sake of my child. My husband is heartbroken over the idea that all of his interactions with her might have been fake. He said what hurts him the most, though, is how she made me cry and doubt myself as a good person. I know there are still a lot of difficult conversations ahead about how to handle my mom's behavior, but one thing is clear. I will definitely be pursuing a restraining order against my sister and my ex. A semi-update on the state of my family so far. I sat down with my mom to have a serious conversation, but she is still clinging to the idea that she knows what is best for me. She even went so far as to say I am a bad person and threatened to pursue grandparents' rights, or worse, custody of my child. I know her accusations are baseless, but hearing them still made me panic. To address her threats, we sent her a formal letter making our position clear. My dad has officially moved out of their house. He told her that he could not continue to support her behavior, especially after she terrorized her own child. My brother and his wife have also decided to go no contact with her. I know it might seem sudden, but I do not think I have fully conveyed just how much despair I felt after that so-called intervention. My husband told everyone afterward that they needed to take time to reflect on what really mattered to them and to be kind and receptive to everything that was happening. He has been my rock through all of this, and he would never raise our child in a toxic environment. Just one more reason, among the thousands, why I love my husband so much. He is deeply hurt by my mom's actions and the realization that her kindness might have been fake all along. He told me she will never get anything from him again, and that is about as far as his revenge goes. My husband and his sisters had a serious talk with my mother-in-law about her earlier comment. They helped her understand why it was so inappropriate, and to her credit, she listened and sincerely apologized. Despite the misunderstanding, my mother-in-law is a very loving woman who comes from a supportive family, and I am grateful to have her on my side. My dad and brother continue to apologize for any part they may have played in letting things get to this point. My dad still cannot believe it has come to this. He says it feels surreal, but both he and my brother have reassured me that they will stand by me no matter what. They have also promised to help me fight any absurd battles my mom or sister tries to start. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their kind and encouraging messages. Reading them has meant so much to me during this incredibly difficult time. Things are a mix of great and horrible right now, but I am doing my best to stay positive. My brother and his wife recently had to sit their kids down and explain some of what has been going on. They told my nephews that their grandma is unwell and tried to hurt their Aunt Annie, their Uncle Diamond, a nickname my husband loves, and their soon-to-be little cousin. They explained that because of this, Grandma will not be part of their lives anymore. But that does not mean she does not love them. It was a tough conversation, but their kids are bright and understood as best they could. They were also told that other Annie, what they call my sister, would not be around anymore either. Interestingly, the kids did not seem to care about losing her. They disliked her on their own, not because of anything I said. It is simply that she is not exactly great with them either. My mom completely lost it when she found out she would no longer be allowed to see her grandchildren. She started making wild claims about her so-called rights, and how she would find a way to see them no matter what. Meanwhile, my dad has been staying with us temporarily while he looks for a permanent place. He plans to move out by January, mainly because my brother's mother-in-law is coming to visit, and we have the space to host him until then. He is heartbroken over how things have unfolded, but is determined to move forward. He has already contacted divorce lawyers, moved his money to separate accounts, and begun making arrangements to cut financial ties with my mom. My mom has been relentless, bombarding him with emails, text messages, and phone calls. He does not respond to any of them, per his lawyer's advice, but he has been told not to block her just yet. At one point, he briefly considered the idea of forgiving her, but then something happened that completely changed his mind and left me shaken. A couple of days after my last update, my blood pressure spiked dangerously. The reason? My mom and sister decided to show up unannounced at my house. My sister had never been to my home before. My mom knew full well she was not welcome, but that did not seem to matter to them. The cleaning lady, unfortunately, let them in. She knows my mom and had no idea about the situation because I had not yet had the chance to inform her that my mom was no longer allowed in my home. I had just returned from running errands when I saw their car parked outside. My heart sank. This time, I did not go inside. Instead, I stayed in the car and immediately started calling family members for help. My husband's sister was the closest, and she got there quickly. She confronted my mom and sister, telling them to leave immediately or she would call the police and report them for trespassing. That finally got them to leave, but the entire ordeal left me feeling terrible. Later, I started experiencing physical symptoms from the stress. My husband took me to the doctor, and they told me all the excitement and tension were not good for my health. They warned me to not exactly great with them either. When my mom found out she would not be allowed to see her grandchildren, she completely lost it. She started making wild claims about her rights and how she would make sure to see them one way or another. Meanwhile, my dad has been staying with us temporarily while he searches for a permanent place. He plans to stay until January, mostly because my brother's mother-in-law is coming to visit, and we have the extra space. He is heartbroken by how things have turned out, but has wasted no time getting his affairs in order. He has already contacted divorce lawyers, moved his banking information, and started cutting financial ties with my mom. She has been bombarding him with emails, messages, and calls, but on his lawyer's advice, he has not blocked her, at least not yet. At one point, my dad considered forgiving her, but that changed after what happened next. A few days after my last post, my blood pressure spiked dangerously because my mom and sister decided to show up at my house uninvited. My sister had never even been to my home before, and my mom knew she was not welcome, but I guess that did not matter to them. Unfortunately, my cleaning lady let them in, not knowing the situation since I had not yet updated her. I had been out running errands, and as soon as I pulled into the driveway and saw their car, I knew something was wrong. This time, I did not go inside. I called my relatives, and my husband's sister, who was nearby, came over immediately. She confronted them, telling them they needed to leave, or I would call the police for trespassing. Thankfully, they left, but the whole ordeal left me feeling physically unwell. Later, I went to the doctor, and they warned me that all this stress was taking a toll on me and the baby. They told me I needed to start relaxing immediately, or it could lead to serious complications. After that, my dad went back to the house with my brother, my uncle, and my husband to collect all of his things. My husband said my sister was there and started screaming at him, blaming him for destroying her family. My dad did not hold back. He told my mom and sister that their actions had nearly caused a tragedy, and he did not want to speak to either of them ever again. Since then, my sister has been sending desperate messages to my brother, begging him to help her fix things. But that is not happening. I feel heartbroken for my nephew. He is losing so much of his family because his mother is clinging to these wacky, harmful ideas. But as sad as it is what it is. I have to prioritize my health and my baby's well-being. Regarding my mom's threats about custody and grandparents' rights, my lawyer sent her a formal letter. It made it clear that her actions had caused harm to both me and the baby, and that if she continued to harass me, it would escalate into an official legal matter. My brother also sent her a letter citing the harm her behavior has caused. Neither my mom nor my sister has shown any interest in going to therapy, despite all the damage they have caused. Whether or not they are dealing with mental health issues, it is clear they have been working together for a long time to orchestrate this chaos. For now, I am focusing on spending the holidays with the family I trust, staying healthy, and continuing with therapy. Hi everyone. I have received some requests for an update and finally found a little time to write one. First, I want to sincerely thank all of you for your kind words and support. Your comments have meant so much to me during this incredibly hard time. Messages, comments, and advice have been such a lifeline for us. We owe you all a huge thank you for helping us stay even more cautious than we already were. A few people asked about how we found out the gender of the baby and why we waited so long to announce it. We learned the gender after 20 weeks, but we chose to wait before sharing the news publicly. In the past, we experienced a loss just as we were preparing to announce a pregnancy. That heartbreak made us more cautious this time around, and we wanted to feel secure before telling anyone. Naively, we also thought it might be a special moment for my mom. But, as it turned out, many of you were right to warn us. After I posted the announcement, I handed everything over to my husband, who spent several days reading through your comments and advice. We took your concerns seriously. First, we swept our house for any hidden devices. Thankfully, we found nothing, but we still felt uneasy and unsafe. To be extra cautious, we moved into a hotel temporarily, with my dad staying with us. That was when we made a chilling discovery. My dad had taken our small dog, a tiny, short-haired pup who often wears a warm vest, out for a walk near the hotel. Out of nowhere, my sister showed up, asking my dad about me and pushing for reconciliation. It was then that we realized there was a tracker sewn into the lining of the dog's vest. Never in a million years would I have thought to check there, but there it was. I was beyond upset. That was the final straw for us. We decided to move. Thankfully, we were in a position to afford it. We are currently renting a new place, and we have also rented out our old home so it does not sit empty. I used to love that house, but now it feels ruined and tainted. Unfortunately, my parents' house feels the same way, not just for me, but for my husband, brother, dad, and even my sisters-in-law and husband's family. To protect ourselves, we took several steps. We changed our phone numbers, got new electronics, and informed our employers, friends, and local law enforcement about the situation. We also started therapy, both individually and as a family. My dad and brother still carry a lot of guilt over what happened, even though I have truly forgiven them. But as a unit, we are slowly healing. My sister and mom, however, remain adamant that they have done nothing wrong and refuse to attend therapy. My dad has officially made a new will. My sister's son will inherit a trust fund and some assets, but she herself will only receive a token amount. He is completely done with her, and while I felt bad for her at first, I have decided to focus my energy on my baby instead. Our little girl is finally here, and we are beyond blessed. It is not the experience I imagined, given that my mom is no longer a part of my life, but the outpouring of love from so many friends and family members has truly surprised us. Toward the end of my pregnancy, we became so paranoid that we tested certain people we were unsure about. We told them I was going into labor and waited to see if the information leaked back to my mom or sister. It worked perfectly. We identified the people who were still feeding them information and cut them out of our lives. The others, thankfully, understood when we explained the reasoning behind our actions. As for my ex, whom my friends now jokingly call Bats, he started spreading ridiculous lies that my baby was his. He claimed we had been carrying on a torrid affair because of my supposed undying love for him. Nobody believes him anymore, but the stunt was enough for my husband to take action. He contacted Bat's employer and laid out all the craziness, ensuring they were aware of his behavior. Long story short, Bats was placed on suspension, pending an internal review at his workplace. I am almost certain he will be fired since they have continued to request more information from us and have been incredibly apologetic about the situation. As for my mom, she has been trying to track us down, but everyone who knows where we are has gone no contact with her. My dad's lawyer sent her an official letter stating that, due to her instability, any future correspondence will have to go through legal channels. Since all of this happened, it has mostly been just me, my husband, and my dad. I invited my dad to stay with us because I felt terrible about him being on his own through all of this. He keeps reassuring me that he will be fine and that none of this is my fault, but I still feel awful. That said, he has been amazing. He has taken on the role of grandpa extraordinaire, becoming the best babysitter, diaper changer, and baby feeder in the universe. My nephews have been their usual loving selves, and my dad even managed to get a visit with my sister's son. This happened after my sister began posting disturbing videos threatening to harm herself unless my husband stopped alienating her family. My dad reached out to her, offering to see her son and warning her that he would involve the police if she continued making threats. Thankfully, that seemed to put an end to it. I also want to address something someone brought up about me supposedly giving Bats false hope. That could not be further from the truth. I spent years feeling uncomfortable because I assumed he would eventually move on, but he never did. After I spoke up and then met my husband, I spent even more time battling my sister about it. I had a very long engagement, and that is part of why I married after my sister. Despite everything, I still love my mom and sister, but I have chosen a healthy life for myself and my family over that love. Through this entire ordeal, I have discovered so much loyalty, compassion, and love from those who truly care about me. As strange as it may sound, I feel lucky that everything exploded the way it did. Hi Reddit. I have a longer update for those who have been following. We officially moved into our new home, and my dad is now living in the guest house. We had many discussions, both in and out of therapy, and decided that while it is great to have him close, we all need our own space. We are still renting out our old house and we'll decide what to do with it later. My dad gets all the grandkids together about 3 times a week now. He still has to see my sister's son separately because she refuses to let him take the child unless she knows where he lives. To be fair, that is a normal concern for most people, but given her erratic behavior, we do not want her anywhere near us. My mom has complained through her lawyers about how unfair it is that my dad gets to see all the grandchildren while she does not. But there is nothing she can do about it legally. About a month ago, my dad dropped a confession on me, and let me tell you, my stomach dropped when he said he needed to talk. It turns out he has been paying for my sister's son's schooling and babysitting. That is part of why she still allows him to see her child. He felt guilty for hiding it, and said he could not bear to keep secrets from me. I assured him there was absolutely nothing wrong with what he was doing. In fact, I told him that Mother's Day was another low point. My dad received an email with a link to an Instagram account that featured a video about my mom. It painted her as this tragic figure, abandoned by most of her family, while my sister was portrayed as a saint for sticking by her. The video was laughably pathetic and honestly enraged me. Instead of engaging, I forwarded it straight to the lawyer. In May, my dad officially filed for divorce. The process is still ongoing, but there is no question in his mind. My mom keeps insisting that he is making a mistake, but he told me he would rather drink bleach than go back to her. That feels pretty final to me. For Father's Day, my brother and husband took my dad out, and they had an amazing time. My sister, of course, posted a ton of nonsense on social media that day, but we made sure to block my dad from seeing any of it. The goal was for him to enjoy himself without any distractions, and it worked. They even planned a special camping trip for the kids. Well, camping. They actually rented a hotel suite, set up a tent in the main area for the kids, and a little teepee for the baby. Having a baby has been one of the greatest joys of my life. Watching my husband step into fatherhood with so much love and dedication has been everything I hoped for. It is exhausting at times, but the support we have from family makes all the difference. I am so grateful for my rocks, my dad, my brother, my husband, and my sisters-in-law. Speaking of my sisters-in-law, we started a shared calendar for the kids. We coordinate activities to ensure they are age-appropriate, and we let the kids know they never have to hang out with people they do not like. Right now, all the kids are obsessed with the baby. They call themselves her protectors and love spending time together. We have little get-togethers, brunches, and other outings, and for the first time in years, family time feels like a joy rather than a headache. Without my sister there, the positivity in the room is palpable. I know it sounds harsh, but she just has a way of draining all the joy out of any gathering. My mother-in-law has also been a wonderful presence. She loves spending time with the baby and stays in the guest room about once a week. She made it a point to ask politely and reassure us that she did not want to take the baby for sleepovers or anything. She respects our boundaries, and I feel heard and valued by her. Of course, I still have moments where I break down because I miss my mom. Not the person she is now, but the mom I thought I had. The mom I used to believe in. My therapist reminds me it is a marathon, not a sprint, and that I should focus on the good. On a positive note, Bats has finally faced consequences. He was terminated from his job, and his reputation in his industry has been completely destroyed. Nuclear-level destruction. His brother's reputation took a hit too, but since my brother-in-law's line of work is less reputation-sensitive, he still has his job as far as I know. Bats did not go quietly, of course. He sent me a 12-page, double-sided, single-space letter. In it, he rambled about how hurt he is that I am denying him what is rightfully his. He also accused my husband of being so threatened by him that he had to ruin him professionally because there was nothing else to destroy. The irony of it all would almost be funny if it were not so disturbing. I say seemed because I did not actually read Bat's letter myself. My lawyer did and gave me a summary. From what I have heard through the grapevine, and no, I do not ask people for updates. They just tell me because they know he is still stalking me. The mother of his children has moved away. Apparently, Bats did not even care and said it was for the best. This is a man who does not even care about his own kids, but somehow thinks he has the right to play house with me and my baby. It is pathetic. Unfortunately, he will not be facing homelessness or anything like that. His mother has already let him move back in with her, so I doubt he will learn a single thing from all of this. It is infuriating, but at least he is out of our lives. On a brighter note, my husband decided to purge every single item given to him by my mom or my parents, with my dad's full blessing. He either burned them or donated them, saying life is too short to let her occupy even a corner of his mind or heart, not even through old memories. Hi Reddit, long time no see. I have some updates for you. Before I dive in, I want to thank everyone for your comments and messages. Every time I log into this account, I am overwhelmed with positive vibes, and I appreciate it so much. I do not know if anyone will still read this, but for those who are interested, most of the updates are good news. First and foremost, my parents are officially divorced. It took months of fighting and tantrums from my mom, but it is done. She kept the house and received a bulk payment, but that is all she got. My dad is like a completely new man now, and we could not be happier for him. A little throwback to when all the drama went down. We did not fire our cleaning lady. She has worked with my husband's family for decades, and I was incredibly stressed about her potentially losing her job because of the chaos my family caused. We are not slobs, but with everything going on, having her around was a huge help. Plus, this is not someone scrubbing floors on her knees. We treat her with respect. My dad spoke with her and explained the situation, telling her she was being put on a paid vacation until we had a new house. He made it clear that she was absolutely not fired and encouraged her to stay with us if she wanted. She was incredibly grateful, and so was her family. Here is the sweet twist. The cleaning lady has a sister who owns a nail salon, and my dad is now dating her. She is a lovely woman with grown children, so she completely understands the dynamics of our family situation. My dad has been very clear that he is not planning to move in with her or remarry, and she is perfectly fine with that. She likes her independence, and the two of them seem really happy together. Of course, my mom nearly had a stroke when she found out about his new relationship. From what I have heard, since I have no contact with her, she has been calling it a late midlife crisis and accusing my dad of being a sugar daddy. It is ridiculous. Meanwhile, she is apparently having a hard time because she has never been good at budgeting and always relied on my dad to rein in her ridiculous spending habits. Now that she has to handle her finances on her own, she is struggling. My sister is also having a tough time, mostly because my dad has stopped helping her financially. Initially, my dad was willing to continue providing some support for the sake of my nephew, but things took a very ugly turn. My nephew started saying some awful things, calling my baby an affair baby, and claiming she was not with her real dad. He also called my other nephews delusional and, at a birthday party, even pushed one of my husband's nephews, shouting that they were not real cousins to my kid and that only he was. The kids were completely confused and upset, but thankfully, they went straight to an adult to report what had happened. My dad immediately spoke with my nephew, but the boy just kept repeating the same hurtful nonsense. When my dad brought it up with my sister, she shrugged it off, saying there was nothing she could do to stop him from telling the truth. She even had the audacity to say, "Do not all kids always tell the truth?" That was the breaking point for my dad. He told her that unless there was a serious change, he was cutting them off financially. She panicked and cried, but her stubbornness got in the way as always. Now, my nephew attends public school because my dad has officially stopped paying for anything related to them. As for Bats, he remains unemployed. I know I have been somewhat cryptic about why he was fired, so here's the full story. He worked in an industry that dealt with vulnerable women, and some aspects of his work were related to stalking prevention. The irony is absolutely mind-blowing. When his behavior came to light, the organization fired him swiftly, not wanting the scandal to taint their reputation. Since then, I have received 2 more long, handwritten, rambling letters from him. He only has my lawyer's address now, so they went straight there. Guess who now has the honor of receiving, reading, and filing Bat's rambling letters? My lawyer. I adore him. He is a true champ for putting up with all this nonsense. Aside from those letters and occasional gossip, I have not had any major issues with Bats lately, except for one incident. I was at the grocery store when a random woman approached me out of nowhere and asked if my child was Bat's baby. I was completely speechless. When I asked her what on earth she was talking about, she said that Bats had a photo of us on his profile and that I should be ashamed of myself for hurting such a good man. Apparently, he is still clinging to the narrative that my child is his and that I secretly love him. It is all old news at this point, but what shocked me the most was the comment about the picture. The photo she described was not something that had ever been made public. It was sent to a private family group chat once, and that was it. I told my husband immediately. He was enraged but stayed calm and composed. We decided it was time to smoke out the rat. Long story short, we discovered it was my dad's 2 sisters feeding information to my mom. My dad was devastated, but did not hesitate to cut them off. They have been begging him to talk to them again, but he remains firm in his decision. On a brighter note, my brother and his family are thriving. We see them often, and since the last update, we have even gone on some family holidays together. They are also no contact with my mom and sister now. My sister-in-law is thrilled about this, as it turns out she never liked our mom but had been keeping the peace for my brother's sake. My mother-in-law continues to be an absolute gem. We have started allowing her to do overnight babysitting, and she is over the moon about it. Sometimes she has all her grandchildren under one roof, and the kids adore her. She used to be a flight attendant, so their favorite game is to pretend to be on an airplane, with her playing the role of the crew. It is heartwarming to see how much they love spending time with her. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law had to make her social media accounts private because my mom was stalking her online. I am sure my mom is extremely jealous of the bond we have with her, but, as the saying goes, she made her bed, and now she has to lie in it. My husband continues to be my rock. He keeps me sane whenever little things from the past creep back up. Lately, we have been discussing whether we should have another baby or maybe adopt one. We are still undecided, but I feel so blessed to have the support system and privilege to even have these conversations. I will not lie, there are still moments when I miss my mom. I sometimes cry when I think about the milestones I can no longer share with her. But at the end of the day, I know she is a toxic person, and my family's safety and happiness matter more. This Father's Day, my dad, husband, and the kids actually went on a proper camping trip. It went really well, apart from the usual mosquito bites and a few unfortunate sunburns in all the wrong places.